There's no need to search anywhere. Happiness is here. Have your share. If you know your love, be secure. Paradise is love, to be sure. That is true. That for me and for you, the world is a ghetto. Don't you know? Yeah, that is true. That The world is a ghetto. Wow. That's a lot to unravel there and unwrap. Hey, welcome, guys. This is the Boomerang Radio Show, coming to you each every Sunday on this network, 3 p.m. on the West Coast, 6 p.m. on
That's a
the
lot.
East. Hey, Mike, did you say Mike?
I was just my other computer is running, and I was just logging into Facebook, and I
Uh,
forgot to kill the sound, so you were hearing yourself
hey,
actually.
that's Hey, no, that's okay. That's I thought that sounded familiar. Yeah, that's okay. Hey, how did you like that? Hey, you kind of like that text message I sent you. That car that ran on alcohol. Uh, I didn't know anything about that. I mean, booze. It ran on booze. Hey, did
Yep.
you know anything
Well,
about that?
I did because I did a lot of racing when I was young and built a lot of endurance motors for boat racing and car racing and roundy rounders and quarter mile. So I was really into cars at one time, and
Right.
I remember that coming across like Car and Motor Sports or whatever magazine was out back then, and it was phenomenal. A jet car, a jet engine car.
Wow. I recall they would experiment with cars running out of ethanol. Okay, at one time. I don't know what happened to that, but I didn't know that you could put actual booze in a car and it would make it run. I said Mike will get a kick out of this. And so yep, I didn't guess that you knew, but I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised. Oh my goodness, the world is a ghetto. The world is a ghetto. We'll get into that a little bit later on, but we got a special guest on tonight, and that is Mr. Greer A. Webb. You remember Greer? Third,
I
he's in his
certainly
third
do.
and last year in law school. Yes, absolutely, absolutely. We're waiting for Ann to come on. Dr. Sims, your buddy, send her a text. She's always late. If it was the plane, she would have missed it. Absolutely. So I know she's going to. I know you're gonna tell us, and so she could get on me about that. Yep, I did it. I did it. I did it. So you feel free to throw me under the bus. I welcome it. And she's having technical difficulties. She texted me about maybe 10 minutes ago, 15 minutes ago, and she was saying she was having computer issues. And so hopefully she can join us. But we do have our special guest on, Mr. Webb. Hey, Greer, how are you, buddy?
I'm doing well. How are you guys doing this evening?
Well, man, I'm excited. I'm smiling because you're on, man. Love having you on any of and all of our platforms. I was telling Mike, I said, Mike Grill will be on. You remember? He said, yeah, he's a bright young man. Absolutely, absolutely. And the word there are two words there to stand out. That's bright and young. Because sometimes, us when we get a little bit older, we lose our common sense. So it's kind of good hearing things from a different perspective. And we
Well,
have a
I'll
couple of
just
topics
say,
that
not to interrupt you, my brother, but I'll just say that you two guys definitely have your common sense about you. But generally, I do agree that common sense is not all that common these days.
True, true.
But I'm
And
looking forward to our
it's so true.
conversation.
I have common sense, but I don't have patience anymore. I've become so jaded and seen too many ugly things in this world, and so I just don't have patience for rudeness or for stupidity, and
Oh,
I instead of zipping my lip and keeping it to myself, I probably am more vocal than I should be about it, and yeah, my tolerance level is like almost gone.
I'm with you, Mike, especially after COVID. I was in the house so long. Y'all are going to hear my mouth when I'm out and about and I witness some wrongdoing or witness some rudeness. So, look, kindness is free. That's what I always say.
Be nice, be
yes,
nice, be nice,
absolutely.
and, until people prove that they don't deserve to be treated in a nice way anymore.
Absolutely. I tell you, I, you know, I have a couple of thoughts about that. Sometimes you want to be quiet, but in this day and age, somebody needs to speak up. Somebody really needs to speak up because we just can't bury our heads or just turn and say, "Oh, it is what it is." I hate that term. I hate it. I really, really hate it. Hey, Kim
Yep.
Rogers, thank you so much for tuning in. Are we sounding loud and clear? Very good, very good. And oh boy, one of our favorite people on this planet. That's Ann Taylor. And we
Hey,
can Taylor, how
everybody.
are you?
Good. How are you
And
doing?
Yeah.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, Valua Brand, thank you guys. We really appreciate when you guys tune and support this network.
Mhm.
We've got a lot to talk about today, and I tried. You know, sometimes I think I try to get in trouble because I was talking about Dr. Sims and how she's always late
try.
for the, you know.
Yep.
Yeah, yep. How she's
Yep.
always late. If it was a plane, guess what, darling? The plane is taking off without you. So anyway, yep. I hope that. Hey,
Well,
Mike, send her a text and tell her I'm throwing her completely under the bus. Yep, absolutely, absolutely.
I'd be careful
Hey,
if I were
yeah,
you, William. She's probably listening to you right now.
I
She's
hope so.
what she's back in the woodwork listening right now. You watch.
I, I hope so. I hope so. Yes, Abe. Before we get into this program, Greer, you just coming from a red carpet event there in Atlanta. What was
awesome.
it? A movie screening? Hey,
It
tell us a little
was
bit about it.
It was indeed, my brother. First of all, it's always good to be on with you all. It's good to see you, Miss Ann Wooten Taylor.
You too, my friend.
I am coming to y'all this Sunday, hot off the red carpet. I was not in the production, but I was able to support a new documentary coming out that demonstrates or details rather the life of Dikembe Mutombo,
Oh, wow.
who many may know. Spent a lot of his career
Mhm.
here in Atlanta. Played for
Mhm.
other teams like the 76ers and the Houston Rockets for a bit, as well as the Denver Nuggets. That's where he started. And so this details his life. He
Mhm.
sadly passed away from cancer
Mhm.
not long ago. This
Mhm.
documentary shows
Yeah.
just the amazing athlete he was on the court, but the even greater humanitarian he was, giving back to
Mhm.
his home country of the Democratic Republic of the Congo. And so
Wow.
was able to be in fellowship with his wife, Rose Mutombo, and his children who were there today. And they're
Mhm.
taking this documentary, which is called Mount Mutombo, around the
Mhm.
country. So look
Yeah.
out for it.
Wow.
And if you have the opportunity to see it, the listeners out there, I know we have some listeners from everywhere, definitely go see it. It was in LA to start back in February for the Pan African Film Festival. It was then here in Atlanta today, and it'll be in New York at the end of October, October 29th. And so it's just amazing, amazing, amazing. I'll have to send you a preview of it,
Mhm.
Willie. And so I want to get your thoughts and Mike and Ann as well, because it was an amazing display of just the power that Dikembe Mutombo commanded, not only on the basketball court, being over 7 feet and knocking down the shots of Charles Barkley and the like, but
Yes,
how he
sir.
really gave back to his community, especially there in the Congo, which, as we all know, is facing some very serious violence and has always been a very impoverished country. He was able to build a hospital, and also he was able to see a schoolhouse come to fruition while he was alive. And so this documentary is supposed to help keep his legacy going. And I was
Mhm.
honored to be a part of that tonight.
Wow. Praise the Lord.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, I was a fan of Mutombo. Just a great humanitarian, and a hell of a shot blocker too. And he had to stay in the like, don't
Not
come
in
in
my
here.
house. Not in my house. That's right. That's right.
you,
That
you
was
know,
displayed in the
you don't
film.
want to
Yeah.
do it. But
Mhm.
what a great guy, and he garnered the respect from everyone around the world, and just a humble man off the court as
Mhm.
well. And so, and you think about this, Ann and Mike, if our uh, rich athletes and just as rich people around the world, if they gave back just a little bit to society in different countries and things like that, because I always say there's enough wealth in this world that no one should be homeless and no one should starve, and everyone
Mhm.
should get a chance to have an education. And a lot of people say,
Mhm.
well, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Well, it's kind of hard if you took my boots. It's kind of hard for me to
Right.
do that.
Right. And the
I don't
straps
have
and
an
everything else.
ability. Yeah. Hey, Lauren Sanders.
I'm
I think. I
barefoot. I'm
think.
barefoot walking on Legos.
Right.
Well,
Yeah.
Right.
interestingly, while we're on the
Hey,
topic,
try that.
they said in the film, and this is going to blow y'all's minds, listeners, viewers, and the panelists, that even today, the average person, now we're not talking about the whole country, we're talking about a community, but it has thousands, if not a million people in the Congo, right there in Central Africa. They live off $2 American a day. They're living off
Wow.
a day. I had the opportunity when I was in college to travel to Kenya, to one of its poorest regions, and they lived off of, I believe it was $5 a week, one
Wow.
person. And so
Wow.
you can obviously imagine, to Brother Brown's point, what that looks like when it comes to hunger, what that looks like when it comes to
Mhm.
healthcare, and what that looks like when it comes to hope. And those people
Mm.
don't have a lot of hope, but I will say that they're very grateful. And that was
Mhm.
something that stood out to me from visiting some of these regions. They're very grateful for what they have, and they don't compare themselves to others the way we do here in America, even with all
Mhm.
of our materialistic wealth. So I just wanted to
Mhm.
add that point before we get going here.
Well, I think it's
Oh
interesting
man,
because we
absolutely.
had Dr. Koye Oyurinde on our show several times. You might remember him, William. He is the doctor who
Of
is
course.
originally from Nigeria. He's worked for the World Health Organization as well as the CDC. And he's written a book called Who Should We Let Die? And it talks about the healthcare systems, not just here in America, but the healthcare system in Africa too. We've got a healthcare system here where you go bankrupt for trying to get well. And over there, they have a healthcare system that's quote unquote free, but the sick patient is required to go and purchase all the stuff that the doctor needs and then take it to the hospital
Mhm.
so in order to be treated. So in both situations, unless you've got a lot of money, you are basically put in a situation where you could end up losing your life because you aren't wealthy enough to pay the ransom for your health. And that's even
Oh
here
yeah.
if you got insurance. And I tell people who take our health and fitness class all the time that your health is basically held for ransom at the grocery store, at the
Mhm.
pharmacy, at the doctor's office. This is all about who has enough money to pay to eat, to eat in a way that keeps your body healthy, because we have what are called um, food deserts in this country, where people are living in areas like, for instance, especially in major cities, where they don't have access to a grocery store so that they can purchase fruits and vegetables and all these other type of things. That those things are too far away from them for them. And in those cities, you often have people who can't drive or rely on public transportation. So what happens if you get sick and you aren't able to get to those areas to purchase what you need? So it's that type of a situation that we have here. It's not everybody's health and fitness isn't on a decline because of their personal choices. Very often it's because they can't afford or even aren't given an opportunity to make a good choice. So I completely, completely believe that our healthcare system needs an overall overhaul, not just here in America, but for the most part globally. A lot of the affluent countries on par with America don't even have this problem. It's all part of the taxation process, where people, you go to the doctor, it's taken care of. You paid enough taxes to cover healthcare for you, your family, everybody. And here, you people act like paying taxes is going to kill them. I mean, it's one of the craziest things on the planet.
Mhm.
I I do not understand why we have certain people who think that if they have to pay taxes that they're being robbed. You People have been paying taxes
Yeah.
since long before the United States was a country.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to education, right? We're going to get into it with the topics in a little bit, I'm sure, Brother Brown. But I heard somebody say the other day, when folks were talking about increased taxes and how can we better our education system and healthcare system, and just, what does it mean to have better government? Somebody was
Mhm.
debating this point, and they said, well, I don't want to pay more taxes, but can somebody fix the roads outside my house?
How do you think it's going to get done?
Mm.
Stupid,
So I think there's
stupid.
a general, I mean, I'm not over here saying I want to pay more taxes, but what I'm saying is we need to be more educated when it comes to the
Mhm.
basic functions of government, A, and B,
Right.
we all, to Mike's point, I think last time we were all on together, we live in a community, we live in a society with other people. And so what we do doesn't just impact us, it impacts those around us. So that's why it's
Everybody.
important to be kind.
Mhm.
That's why it's important to be understanding, even if you don't agree with the person, to just
Right.
be out here like, oh, it's all about me, me, me. then you want paved roads, you want short lines at the doctor's office,
Right.
you want good public schools for your kids. That
Exactly.
doesn't just happen automatically. That happens because we all sacrifice, because we're part of a
Right.
growing society. So I
Exactly.
just think education
Absolutely.
is such the bedrock of everything.
I don't know if it's education
It's
because I took civics. I took American history. I took Arkansas history. I think a lot of it is ideology because I'm sitting in the same classroom with these same folks who are growing up in households where they're being taught just the opposite of what we're learning from this teacher in this school. Now, do I think it affects some people? I think there are some folks who are like, okay, what I'm learning in school is different from what mom and dad are talking about at home, and my real world experience is showing me something else. But very often, I think you have a lot of people who just mom and dad did it this way, so I'm going to do it that way. And that's
That's
like
true.
their only reason, the only reason why they vote the way they do, why they think the way they do, why they, listen to the so-called leaders that they listen to. It's not, that they're using any critical thinking skills of their own. They're just basically doing what they were told to do.
Mhm.
Right, right. It
Mhm.
learned behaviors, right?
Right.
And
Right.
what we learn is still, to your point, and I guess a version of education, but so much so much comes from the home, right? And so if you have
Right.
something being taught at school, but it's not being reinforced at home, or you're learning something different at home, I
Mhm.
think you're right. That's why we see these great ideological divides. But anyway, that's just a little tangent from me. I wish we all had a little more civic engagement and understanding.
Well, I think
Yeah,
homeschooling
absolutely.
has made that worse. Personally, I think the homeschooling epidemic has made it much worse. I think you have a lot of people who are that should be regulated so much more than it is because when you hear about the stuff that they're calling education and tax dollars are being funneled to these folks to teach their kids at home and the things that they're doing, I want my money back. Okay, because this is a waste of taxpayer dollars. But I really do think that we aren't getting um in these so-called homeschool environments the education that we're supposed to be getting, that we would
Hmm.
probably get
Hmm.
if we had gone to school. And I say what you want about our school system. I've said it before on the show and I'll say it again. It is really not a fair comparison to compare how we educate our children to the way kids all over the world are educated. They are done totally differently from one country to another. Um, for instance, he mentioned he went to Kenya. When I went to Senegal, you could go to school so long as you could afford the uniform. And so many families were too poor to afford a uniform that kids couldn't go to school. So and not only that, you have some countries where
Please.
they're only going to educate you to a certain level. They look at how you perform. And if you are not a top performer, they stop educating you. And they're like, okay, you need to go learn a trade, or they put you in different areas. So we just put everybody together, whether you got disabilities, learning disabilities, physical disabilities, whether you are high Q intellectuals, we all learn together. And we all get to stay together through 12th grade. And it used to be a long time ago that we even got educated beyond that, where you could get a college education at a public school until the Republicans got upset at the fact that there were people in schools who were exercising their right to free speech and protesting. So they thought it'd be a really good idea to start making you pay to go to college as a punishment. And now we've got the system that we have now where people are basically mortgaging their futures away in order to get an education out because a couple of people got mad because somebody exercised their First Amendment rights. But I said all
Hmm.
that to say the issue is not that we have a bad system. The issue is you're comparing and contrasting systems that are totally different than the way other countries do it. So
Right.
I think our system has gotten a bad rap because
And
of that, and because some other people wanted to tear down our educational system.
And to your point, just
Mhm.
before we move on, I see Dr. Sims has joined us. It's good to see
Hey,
her
lady.
again.
Hi.
Trade
Hey.
school is school too, right? And so when you have folks out here learning a trade or saying, hey, I'm really interested in getting a 2-year or community college
Mhm.
degree, a lot of young people are doing that, and they're blowing the
Mhm.
rest of us out of the water when it comes to
Yep.
yearly salaries. So you have
Yes.
plumbers, electricians, y'all, are probably, at least a few of us on this call, homeowners, and you know how much you're doling out in terms of plumbing expenses and electricity every year. So let's not downplay trade schools or community
No,
colleges
no,
either.
no, no. And I don't mean that. I don't mean to
No,
downplay
I'm
it.
not
I'm
saying
just
you
saying,
are, but there are many people who
oh
do.
yeah.
I'm agreeing with you, lifting trades, and the
Mhm.
fact that in the Black community in particular, right, trades were lifted up. You had the whole debate between Booker T, right,
Yep.
versus W.E.B. Du Bois. And so to say that, as we're talking about education, I just wanted to mention that trade schools are important, right? They help us all function as a society. And so 4-year degrees may not be for everybody. And I'm coming more and more around to that conclusion.
And they get out of
Mhm.
school faster. I mean, you don't have to spend
Yeah.
a good portion of your life in school if
Mhm.
you learn a trade. But if you want something specialized like medical school or law school, we let you keep going. We give you chance after chance after chance. Other countries, they're like, no, you got to prove to us that you can make it to that particular level by how you have been performing all along up until this point. So we've got different systems, and we just need to
Yeah.
either change what we've got if we don't like it, or appreciate the fact that we've got a system that looks at everybody and tries at least to educate all of us. I mean, I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but special education isn't like it used to be. You have children who go to school who have all sorts of disabilities. I mean, my aunt used to work as a one-on-one aide to children who were in wheelchairs, children who needed help going to the bathroom. And that's because we learned that putting them just in one little room by themselves is negative is has a negative impact on them. When they have access to children who don't have disabilities, it positively impacts them in ways that you do
Mhm.
not understand. You're not going to necessarily
Mhm.
get that in other countries. Okay, so when you try to test all of us, meaning those of us with the highest IQs as well as those of us with the lowest IQs, against their cream of the crop, of course it's going to look like their system is working better than ours. But I don't think that that's a fair comparison. I think that our system,
Mhm.
because it's so inclusive, is probably a much better system than it's being made out to be. But that's just my personal opinion.
Well, yeah, you're exactly right, and I think that a lot of this, these countries, I think when you cut off aid, or if you cut off education, or you cut off food assistance, um, then you also, oh, and also if you are, even in this country, and people making $10 and $12 an hour even today, which is not a living wage. And if you want to, and so we're going to get into this a little bit later on in the conversation as well. And because a lot of people are, well, there's too much crime here. Well, one of the ways to eliminate or decrease the crime is to decrease poverty.
Yep.
Decrease poverty, because people will, if people don't have a way to survive, because we have a natural instinct in us to want to survive, whether it's hunger or whatever, shelter or whatever it is, and people are going to find
Hmm.
a way to do that. And if they can't,
Hmm.
and rather than starve, they are going to commit a crime to make sure they survive. I mean,
Hmm.
I don't like crime. It's wrong. But then you have too many people out here, too many millionaires and multimillionaires and billionaires. They don't
Hmm.
want to pay the taxes. They don't want to pay the taxes, and they don't want to even raise the minimum wage. They don't want to do that. Yeah, you have this guy in his ivory tower, this CEO, they're making 50 million, 100 million,
Hmm.
150 million
Hmm.
dollars a year for doing nothing. These
Right.
CEOs don't work. You have to understand they don't do the work. And a lot of
Right.
CEOs are just plain stupid. They just happen to be cronies with somebody to put them in that position that allowed them
Right.
to go on, just take from the
Right.
rest. And I don't understand it. I don't understand it. They don't want to pay any taxes. And you find out that us, the average person out here, we are paying more taxes than they are. I just want to say hi to Lauren Sanders. Hey, Lauren, she's put up a lot of comments. I think Lauren is out there
Hey.
in Southern California. Hey, how are you? Let's see what she said. and being involved in education, going after school activities, including sports and after school programs. Boston, let's see, Boston. She is in California. Matter of fact, her dad was a friend of mine. Barstow Community College, number one, Chaffey College, Victor Valley College. I guess she's talking about some colleges there. But anyway, she mentioned
And she
something
makes
earlier.
Sorry, Brother Brown. Just real quick, I want to lift up
No,
what
go on.
Lauren's saying because I think it's great. And this goes to Ann's point. Lauren's saying that being involved in education could make a difference, including
Yes.
sports and arts and after-school programs. And parental involvement, right, is so
Yes.
important because that places parents among other parents. And so if they have some crazy ideology at home, that's one thing, but they may not share that ideology, or they may learn a different ideology when they're
Right.
placed in a community with other parents. So if you're a parent listening, or if you're a student, get involved in what your school has to offer, sports, and not just sports, but also the arts and after school activities. So great point, Lauren.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I want to say hello to Kim Rogers, Valua Brand. Thank you guys for always supporting us. Hey, Dr. Sims, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. And forgive me for my tardiness, but I do church. Okay, I'm just saying. But anyway, glad to see everybody. Hi, Mike. Hi, William.
Hi.
Hi. How do you say your first name?
Greer.
Greer.
I tell people
And
just
happy
pretend the A's
belated
not there.
birthday, Ann.
Hey,
My
thank you,
girl.
big sis. Looking all pretty. How you doing?
Hey, I'm trying to hold it up at this end, okay? But I'm glad to be here. Good, interesting subject so far. I'm listening to.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh, and I want to tell you, I'm
one
proud of
other-
you boys. I went by and visited your little site, and I didn't. I don't mean any harm when I say your little
That's
site. That's
okay.
just my country talking.
That's
But I'm
okay.
just saying, I am impressed
Aw,
on their
praise the
podcast.
Lord.
I said, oh, okay, I got to up my game.
Well, praise the Lord. Thank you. They're learning. The progress is being made. And I'm
Really,
thankful to see
really
how they're doing better. They're
nice.
growing.
Really nice.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I have to have Greer on the
it
show.
was- oh, that would be great. They would love to have Greer on. And guys, in case you don't know what we're talking about, we were talking about the revamping of and reintroducing the Teens Talk Truth, a radio program which comes on each and every Saturday. And that's 9 a.m. On the West Coast, noon here. No, yeah, noon on the Central Standard Time and 1 p.m. right here, Eastern Standard Time. And so I am so proud of him as well. Alex took over after Alex took over after brother AJ went to college. And I was wondering because let me just give you guys a little recap. We started Teens Talk Truth several years ago.
Yeah.
And Ann's eldest son, AJ, he was the host of the show, and he did a phenomenal job. And Alex came to tag along. He said, hey, if my brother's going to do this, I'm going to do this too, right? And so they did it together. And so when I left this, so the show went into a hiatus for a while. But I think it's important that we hear what the teens have to say.
Yes.
I think it's very, very important to find out. We need to talk to them. We need to talk to our children. Okay.
Right.
Don't just let them go into the bedroom, their iPad, lock the door, and you have no idea what's going on.
Right.
Would you rather rear your children, or would you want that computer and social media to influence your children? And there's so many horror stories that can come out of that if you don't pay attention. So, and your involvement is phenomenal. Thank you so much. And these young men, Mike, you would love this. They are creating and making their own music. And yesterday, they had their music teacher on with them. And you could tell that he was so proud of them. He was so proud of them.
Nice.
Guys, this is what we talk about, being involved with our children. And because if you don't, it may not go the way we want it to go. All right. So let's switch over a little bit. Oh, absolutely. Lauren, absolutely. We have to communicate, period, with teens and adults because there's been a gap for years and years and years. Dr. Sims and Mike and Ann, and I can certainly, our parents were involved. They wanted to know what you're doing and who you're doing it with. All right. Absolutely. You just can't let your children just go astray. They are still
William, I
developing.
can't honestly be
I'm
sorry. I can't be including that because that's not true on my end. Okay, because most of us didn't have that type of interaction. That's the only reason why I jumped in there, and I'll tell you why if you further the discussion as to the reason why I am how I am today.
Okay, and look, nothing's 100%.
Exactly.
Nothing's 100%. I'm just telling you about my experience, and I know in communicating with Mike over several years and with Ann, that's been our involvement. My mom, I came from, and also I came from a one-parent household,
Wow.
and my mom raised, or properly termed, reared 7 boys and 1 girl, and with an iron
Wow.
fist too.
Wow. Yes,
With an
sir.
iron
Yes,
skillet.
sir. Yes, sir.
My parents were
You
the
know,
same
I
way,
would call it.
Brother Brown. I often heard, we brought you in this world and we can take you out.
Take you out.
Yes,
My
sir.
key words.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I like that form of communication with the youth,
Yes,
where
sir.
I want to communicate with the youth, but here's how it goes. I
Right.
talk, you listen.
Exactly.
I have no
Exactly.
tolerance again. I understand. I'm
Wow.
joking
Well,
halfway here, but
well,
Wow.
yeah. Well, see, we
I
have
would
to.
love to hear more
I
about what
think,
Dr. Stones was saying about her upbringing and how it might differ from
yeah.
what we were
Oh
saying.
goodness. Okay. I'm gonna make it
Okay,
really
Dr.
short.
Sims.
There was 12 children. Well, my father remarried again, and we were what, blended family. There was 3 of us girls by my father's first marriage, and we blended in with my stepmom, who had already had 4 children, and then of course each year it seemed like they were having more babies until we became a population of 12 in the
Wow.
house of children. I'm next to the oldest, but the oldest second mama, if you
you got
can
your own basketball team.
understand. I know. But my dad was a singer, so we did a lot of singing. But as far as the school activity, and I don't fault my parents, because the reason why I don't fault them is because you, with your level of understanding. Now, my dad was an educator because he was military. He could type 85 words a minute. He was awesome writing his books and what have you. But with as far as the interaction with the children, we had very minimum, and we had to be somewhat self-starters, if that makes sense. Um, and the thing is this, that we didn't have, like a lot of people have, we were impoverished. Okay, he did the best he could, but I will give him his props. He stayed. Wasn't a father that left from the pressures of life. And we were the kind of children that we had to get up at 2 o'clock in the morning, go help dad clean up banks and things like that, and
Wow.
janitorial services. And so
Wow.
come home, and I had to be second fiddle as far as mom was concerned with the younger siblings. But it was an experience. And basically, one of the things that I take for that, because I understand my parents provided for us the best as they could, because both of them were working. And then, two, some of us who were older had to take up the ranks, and provide. I'm not going to down them, but we learned through trial and error. Some of us do that through hardships and what have you, mistakes. One of the things that I promised myself, I was not going to be disassociated, if I could use that word, with my own children, to the point where I wanted them to be achievers, because I was always a higher achiever. And I'm giving myself kudos, whether people say she's being braggadocious, but you don't know my hardships for me to have that
Right.
kind of mind. And so, with me doing that, I encourage my children to be the best that they can be, even to the point of looking at, when they were older, the type of employment they would like to have, what was going to stay, how to monitor it, what was going to close up. But I taught my children to be very open with me, because I wasn't able to be open with my parents. And a lot of times I wanted to know what they were thinking and what was going on. And I think I said this last time, learn your children's behavior and learn their
Yes.
personas and things like that. And the reason why I say that's very, very good, it is because that wasn't done for me. Does that make sense? Where some travesties happened in my life, I had to be silent and bear with that until I got help as I got older, to understand that the things that transpired in my life was not my fault, because I would question, why am I here? And I thought I was here for just abuse. And so I had to make my children understand that whoever does what to you, you're able to come and talk to mom. Talk to mom. My children would lay across my bed and they would talk to me about everything,
Praise the Lord.
even my sons, to the point where they had their first sexual encounter. I had to keep a straight face, of course.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
And I had to say,
Woo,
"Oh, God."
woo.
And I had to breathe in, breathe out. And I'm like,
Right,
"Oh, my
right,
God," you know.
right.
And my eldest being in the military, he knew he could talk to his mom. I'm like, "Oh, Lord, help me." But anyway, we were able to discuss that. And I was
Right,
able to
right.
rationalize some things with him. And I'm glad he had a sister because I did a parallel as a mom. How would you like if someone did some things to your sister in the way that you've
Mm,
done? And he sit there and cried like a baby
Mhm.
because you're not thinking at that age that it could happen to a family member. And so these are the kind of wisdom nuggets that I gave my children. And I had to learn them. I had to really learn them.
Mhm.
And so that's why I said not all parents are interactive, and it has to do with their work uh, schedules and things like that, and them
Mhm.
being tired and all kinds of things. And in fact, and I'll say this: me
mm,
and my sister was on homecoming court. We were nominated for that, and mom and dad weren't able to come to that. Just a lot of things, activities, track
Mhm.
and field. They didn't come to that, and things like that.
Right.
And so, I promised myself that I would not have that on my children.
Mhm.
So I did the
mhm,
opposite of a lot of what people do, because some people say, "Well, my mom, dad didn't show up for me, so why should I show up for you when you came out? I came out
Mhm.
all right."
mm,
Who's
Mhm.
to gauge
mm,
what all right is? Okay,
Right,
so
mm,
right.
that's the thing, and then too, I always had a problem with people's what make them tick. And that was my lot as a young girl. I would always
Mhm.
what make their
mhm,
brain make them think that they could do stuff like that, and so that's why I'm in the
mhm.
field that I am today in mental health,
Mm.
and so I
Right.
understand more and more. So that's my story, but it's
Well,
a
well,
good one. It's
Dr. Sims, yeah, but I applaud the fact that you realized what you felt that you were missing growing up, and you
yeah,
were not going to deprive your children of the same thing. So I applaud you of that. And so that
Right.
goes
Yes,
back to our point. These things
right.
are important. And I want to say something about Lauren Sanders. She is out there in Southern California. As a matter of fact, she is. When I had the studio in Southern California, she introduced us to some other guests that we had on our shows there. And she said there was two-parent household. Her dad passed away in 2017. I remember that vividly because I knew her dad,
Mhm.
right? And they were married for over 40 years. She said something about, and I'm paraphrasing Lauren for the sake of time here, that you guys sit down, you eat dinner together a few times a week. Both your mom and your dad help you with your homework, parent-teacher conferences, many other activities, and you and your brother were involved. And may she say that she was her I say I am my father's daughter, 95% him, nice, etc., and 5% mom.
Mhm.
There's a lot of daddy girls out here. And my daughter's the same way.
Yes.
Oh boy, she would talk to me about things that she wouldn't talk to her mom about. And I
Mhm.
welcome that. Sometimes I had
Right,
to hold the phone away from my ear. I said, oh my God, this is my girl.
right.
But I
Mhm.
wanted her to know that I was there. Wow.
And I
Okay.
think Dr. Sims,
But let's
and
go.
thank you for sharing that, Dr. Sims. I think that point that you're making is a poignant one, right? And Brother Brown mentioned this, that everybody's experience isn't the same. And what I
Mhm.
kept
Right.
hearing in the
Right.
back of my head while you were speaking is this phrase, specifically when it comes to parenting, that the level of care may be the same, the capacity to care might be different. Not all
Yes.
parents have the same capacity to care
Right.
for their children. That's just a fact of life.
Right.
As Lauren is saying there in the comments, her most recent comment that her dad ended up commuting to work,
Mm.
85 miles one way. And so you've got
Wow.
parents who are doing that. You have other parents who are working. And some of our students at
Right.
Sidekicks Academy, which I know you all know about, have a similar story, Dr. Sims, where they
Mhm.
have to get up early and have to help their parents,
Yep.
whether it's clean facilities or mow the lawn. They have to contribute because we don't all have the same level of wealth.
Right.
However,
Right.
do I think that that means that the parents of our students in Sidekicks Academy don't care for them? No.
Mm.
Is that an invitation for abuse? No.
Mm.
But people's capacity must be recognized. And so to say that
Yes.
everybody's one way or everybody's another, we know that that's not
Indeed.
the case. So thank you for sharing your story and being
Indeed.
vulnerable.
Mhm.
Indeed.
Amen.
Well,
I want to
later on, I
before we
became a
go.
daddy's girl because we used to walk and dance together and stuff like that. It wasn't all about
That's
stardom.
Aw.
cool.
We used
Aw.
to spend that when the music started up. We all got in the living room, okay, and I
I
was
heard
daddy's
that. I
girl for
heard that.
because I knew the moves, okay. So we had
You
those
know,
fun times. I'm not saying everything's bad, but it was about work and
that's funny.
support
That's
and what
funny.
have you financially, okay.
That,
Wow.
Dad
that's
was an awesome character. He was a character. So am I. So
uh, that's
I'm
true.
like him, but
Yes, Sam.
That's
Look,
true. Okay, I want to hear. Hey, Mike, you're mighty quiet there because I know you had an interesting upbringing, and you had
mhm.
some very interesting parents. uh, and your dad was a colonel in the army, and but you did tell us about how you were sitting in his chair one day, and he told you he hit the back of the chair. You said, "Hey, I'm sitting here." He picked your butt up and threw you across the room. But
Wow.
It was in
Okay.
jest. I knew that, that's his chair. When he comes in, you should move, right? Well, I wasn't being defiant. I was trying to be funny. And so I'm sitting in his lazy boy rocker, and I'm watching whatever I'm watching on TV in the afternoon. And he comes in, he pats the back of the chair and says, "Hey, I was here first." And my dad he wasn't real tall. He was only maybe 5'8", but he had arms like Popeye. I mean, his forearms, he was huge. And he grabbed me by the back of the neck and tossed me out of his chair. And he knew I was just kidding around.
All
Alex shares
this is
something
funny.
in common. Does that too. He likes to, as soon as you get up, he'll run and get in your spot and sit there. It's like, you know, I'm coming back, right? He loves to do that type of stuff.
He just wants your attention. Let's go and switch gears right now. I'm going to do something right quick. Let's see if I have it up. But here we go. Let's do this. All right. Okay. Let's see if we have it. All right. Here we go.
Was arrested and jailed by immigration officials despite the fact that she's a U.S. citizen. Dozens of protesters representing labor unions, immigrant activists, and family and friends rallied outside San Francisco's federal court building, anticipating the release of Angie Guerrero. KTVU obtained this video showing a protest near the ICE courthouse Wednesday morning. Supporters say Guerrero was taken into custody Wednesday in an Immigration and Customs Enforcement raid that resulted in 9 arrests, including Guerrero, a U.S. citizen born and raised in San Francisco.
Why is it that they want to intimidate and criminalize our people, the ones who are fighting back like Angie? It's because they don't want us to remember who the real criminals are.
Supporters and families say even tracking down basic information, such as where Guerrero was being held and whether or not there would be a hearing, was next to impossible, leaving them worried Guerrero could be anywhere.
The people get speedily transferred somewhere else without the families knowing where they are, and even sometimes they be shipped out of the country. So that has happened, and as a parent, you're rushing through all of those possibilities.
Finally, after more than 24 hours in custody, Angie Guerrero, who goes by the pronouns she, her, walked out of the court building to the waiting crowd.
I'm good, despite the brutality and repression that the federal government is placing on this city, my city, the city I was born in.
Guerrero didn't want to discuss details of the arrest, saying only that it was an abuse of power by federal authorities, as she didn't know what would happen after the arrest.
For a while, I was afraid that I was going to be taken to somewhere like Louisiana because they've been taking citizens and non-citizens alike all across the country.
Guerrero said the concern is that if a U.S. citizen can be arrested and jailed overnight, it can happen to anyone.
The rule of law no longer matters in a society where fascism has taken over.
Now, we have reached out to ICE to get more clarity on what led to this arrest and what charges, if any, will follow. So far, we've not heard back. Guerrero tells us that the next court date is set for September. We're live in San Francisco. Christian Cafton, KTVU, Fox 2 News.
Okay, Christian, thank you.
All right. Hey, we're back, guys. Okay. A couple of things. Because to the rest of the panel, Greer sent me a couple of topics, and I thought I'd pull this one up. It's not exactly, but I think they will fit the narrative here. And one was a potential topic was the federal takeover of D.C. Lawsuits currently inhibiting the operation of Alligator Alcatraz, target fast, boycott, and growing importance of economic equality. Let's talk about this a little bit, because I know when this thing first happened, I know many were saying, oh, no, U.S. citizens, they're not going to be bothered. Or they're only going after the bad guys. And so we're just going to, but now instead of going after the bad people, which I agree, if you have broken the laws, then you need to be arrested if you have broken a law. If you're here illegally and you broke the law, Absolutely, I have no issue with you being deported, but it's a quota game. Let's get 3,000 people a day. Now, it doesn't say what the criteria should be, but 3,000 people a day. So they just want to beat the numbers. It doesn't matter whether you're a citizen, not citizen. Now, there have been some citizens that have been deported. Okay, contrary to what a lot of people believe, and how they were deported, that bothers me. Also, if you are applying for citizenship, whether you came here on a visa or if you came here legally through the right way, through the checkpoints and stuff like that, and you have a court date, no one should be arresting you and prohibiting you from going for your due process. Because I'm gonna tell you something, MS-13, the gang members, other gang members, the criminals, they're not going to court to gain citizenship. They're not doing this.
Right.
You say, well, let's do it the right way. The right way is, okay, I have a immigration hearing, okay, and I have a court date for, say, tomorrow, and I go to court and I get arrested. I think that is totally wrong, wrong, wrong. Okay, we're going to talk about, then we're going to get into DC, and then we'll talk about alligator Alcatraz. But let's go around the panel, and let's start with our guest, Greer. I want your take on what you just heard, and then we'll go into let's go to Ann, Dr. Sims, and Mike, and back to me. But we won't go in that order, okay? All right, Greer,
Almost like a boomerang, if you will. That's that clip that you played, Brother Brown, is just so poignant to me. I was over here taking notes while the reporter was telling the story and while Miss Guerrero was speaking, and I just wrote down a quote here that was mentioned by that person who was arrested and then released. And Ann can correct me on this legal stuff if she needs to, because I have not graduated law school yet, but I have taken immigration law classes, and I've taken a class called, for the listeners, Constitutional Criminal Procedure, which is all about what police can and cannot do. So the fact that this person was arrested and then a judge determined that they could be released and sent back into their community ideally means that this person is not a dangerous criminal who needs to be locked up, because a judge made a decision to let this person out while they were considering the case. Now, this is an interesting case, to your point, Brother Brown, because I believe, and again, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, that this person was a U.S. citizen or applying for U.S. citizenry. And to Brother Brown's point,
no, this person was a citizen.
This person was a U.S. citizen. Okay, so we've seen this. This is not the first story I've heard like this. And there's also something else, just at a basic level, called due process in this country. In addition to due process, there is an idea called probable cause. And so it's not, well, I know the people in charge these days really don't care about the Constitution, but it's unconstitutional for you to round people up and arrest them and say, oh, they're hanging out with people who are bad, or, oh, they look a little suspicious. Oh, this person, posted this one thing. If you don't have probable cause, if you don't have a magistrate judge signing off on what you're saying, police are not supposed to just be rounding people up and sorting people out later. That's not how it's supposed to work. You can argue that we're in a state of emergency in this country, or that immigration has gotten so bad that we need to do that. But just going up to people because you as an officer or an agent have a personal suspicion is not enough. And so here, I think one of the most important pieces to understand is that all of this moving around of people and this hush hush and some of these family members not knowing what's going on with their loved one, that's scary. Right? Whether or not it's right, that's scary to these families. And so we should be a country of transparency. If we're deporting people, if we're moving people to prisons, we won't even get to the double standard of moving Ghislaine Maxwell to a nice prison in Texas, but sending this U.S. citizen to probably a dangerous jail in Los Angeles. If you're a U.S. citizen, you have certain rights. If you're applying for U.S. citizenry and you're in that process, you have certain rights. And so to me, it's frustrating that we're allowing seemingly these rights to just be stripped away. I guess tangentially, and then I'll be quiet. I saw a story over the weekend. This man, he has a few nicknames, but one of them is the Maryland man, Kilmar Abrego Garcia. That was the man who was wrongly deported, was brought back here. And then a judge, I believe on Friday or maybe yesterday, said that he also is allowed to be back into the community while his case continues. So
Mhm.
ideally, again, that would mean that that judge did not think he was this huge danger to society like the
Right.
Trump administration was making him out to be. I don't know if he's done some wrongdoing, but the judge didn't see enough there to keep
Mhm.
him imprisoned. And so that goes against the administration's whole narrative. And so my only concern, and really it's, I think, a major concern, is that we have an administration which, to use one of Brother Brown's points, has a particular ideology, and it has now
Mhm.
empowered federal officers and agents to act on that ideology instead of acting on provable facts.
Right. I'm glad you brought up the legal aspect of it because back in May, CNN did a really good sort of a timeline of immigration policies. And they talked about how the Trump administration is using some of those policies, and we're talking about policies that are hundreds of years old. Um, in terms of their significance and how they're being used today. So the article was done by Elise Hammond. I think it was May 17, 2025 is what I'm looking at. It says Trump is digging up old immigration policies to help his crackdown. Here's a timeline for how we got here. So, and I'm going to read the article because it has year after year in this country what we've done in terms of immigration. And I want to point this out because I have said over and over and over again, this is not a new issue. When we want people to come to this country, we have open arms and we get them here however we want to, whether you come by force or by choice. Everybody here is an immigrant except for the indigenous people. But when we get tired of having people come into the country, we come up with all these different rules to keep them out. So anyway, President Donald Trump wasted no time enacting his immigration crackdown after being inaugurated for a second term. On the campaign trail, he promised mass deportations and more arrests. And to do it, he's resurrecting old policies. Immigration policy being at the forefront of politics is nothing new. From the nation's founding to modern day, the policies enacted over time reveal shifting priorities, from establishing the first basis of what it takes to immigrate to the U.S., to regulating the flow of arrivals, to addressing national security concerns in the wake of wars and 9/11. Members of the Trump administration are very, very familiar with our immigration laws throughout the country's history and are looking back to see what provision they might use to achieve their current policies on immigration, said Julia Jalaf, the associate director of the U.S. Immigration Policy Program at the Migration Policy Institute. But according to a recent CNN poll conducted by SSRS, about 52% of Americans say Trump has gone too far in deporting undocumented immigrants, and 57% say they do not believe the federal government is being careful in following the law while carrying out deportations. In fact, while weighing the issue before the election, some young voters told CNN current laws don't keep up with the times and they wanted to see bipartisan reform. The problem, accomplishing a comprehensive overhaul of the system, is no easy task in an increasingly divided political climate. So here's a look at how we got here. 1790, the first Congress passed the first Naturalization Act. It ratified the recently written Constitution, granting the power to establish a uniform rule of naturalization for free white persons who lived in the United States for at least 2 years. 1798, the Alien Enemies Act. I think we've heard of that one recently, right? So
Right.
1798 and 2025. Let's see how this is working. The Alien Enemies Act gave the government the authority to detain and deport people who were not U.S. citizens and deemed a threat during wartime, plus allowed the government to bypass some of the protocols in the immigration statutes. It was part of 4 laws collectively known as the Alien and Sedition Acts that were passed when the U.S. was on the verge of France. It could be invoked by a president if the U.S. was at war with another country, or if a foreign nation or government invaded or threatened to invade the U.S. The Sedition Act also permitted deportations of anyone who was deemed a threat or who published false writing against the U.S. Fast forward to 1868. Ratified by the states in 1868, the 14th Amendment granted citizenship to all people born or naturalized in the United States, including Black Americans and former slaves, according to the Constitution. 1849 through the 1870s, large numbers of Chinese immigrants began arriving during the California gold rush. The mass migration of speculators swelled California's population to more than quadruple in size in about a decade's time, growing to more than 370,000 people by 1860. So, when economic panic ensued in the US in the 1870s, white citizens scapegoated Chinese immigrants for taking away jobs. Is any of this sounding familiar? 1882. Signed into law by President Chester Arthur, the Chinese Exclusion Act was the first and only federal law to prevent a specific nationality of people from becoming U.S. citizens. It blocked Chinese workers from coming legally to the country and blocked Chinese immigrants who were already living here from becoming U.S. citizens. The Library of Congress called it the first significant restriction on free immigration in U.S. history. 1891. The Immigration Act of 1891 gave the federal government authority over the immigration process, according to the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. Prior to this law, immigrants were required to be processed by individual states. 1892. Ellis Island opened to accommodate the federal government's new authority, according to the National Park Service. Between its opening in January 1st, 1892, and when it closed in 1954, Ellis Island received more than 12 million people, NPS says. 1917, the United States passed the strictest immigration law of its time, the Immigration Act of 1917, 2 months before the U.S. entered World War I. The law restricted the immigration of many people from the Middle East and Asia, including modern-day India, Afghanistan, Iran, Saudi Arabia, Russia, Southeast Asia, and the Asian Pacific Islands. To keep these people out, the law raised the tax imposed on most adult entrants. It also imposed a literacy test requiring newcomers older than 16 years old to show basic reading comprehension in any language. Many of these provisions paved the way for another immigration policy in the future, the State Department's Office of the Historian said. Some context. With World War I in full swing, U.S. lawmakers who drafted and passed the Immigration Act of 1917 characterized it as necessary for the country's security. The Office of the Historian said that the uncertainty generated over national security during the war made it possible for the act to be signed into law, but it didn't pass unopposed. President Woodrow Wilson vetoed it, arguing the law prevented good people from joining American society. Congress overrode the veto. 1921. The Emergency Quota Act of 1921 was the first time the U.S. set a cap on the number of immigrants allowed into the country, according to the Migration Policy Institute. The quota applied only to people coming from outside the Western Hemisphere, MPI said. Most people from Asia were still barred per the Immigration Act of 1917. It came during a time of growing isolationism, immigration fears, and increased global displacement during and after World War I, the MPS said. 1924. The Immigration Act of 1924 reflected desires to tamp down on overall immigration, but also try to shift the origins of immigration back to the Western and Northern European origin, Gillette said. The act lowered the quotas, according to the Office of the Historian, and included people of British descent whose families lived in the U.S. for a long time in the calculations. This meant more visas were available for people from the British Isles and Western Europe. The office said immigrants from Asia were still excluded. It said Republican Senator David Reed of Pennsylvania, one of the lead sponsors of the bill, wrote in the New York Times that year that the U.S. would become a more homogenous nation. He wrote that excluding people from certain countries implies no reflection upon the merit of the excluded peoples. It is merely a recognition of their fundamental dissimilarity from ourselves. This was a period where eugenics was sort of cutting edge science, Gillette said. There was a concern that these were lower quality people, basically, who were coming from Eastern and Southern Europe. 1929 and 1934, during the Great Depression, federal and local authorities rounded up large numbers of Mexican immigrants and Mexican Americans, forcing them to leave their homes on the Arizona, California, and Texas borders and relocate to Mexico. Many Americans at the time blamed Mexican communities for taking away jobs and public assistance resources. The USCIS notes many people who returned to Mexico voluntarily. Many people also returned to Mexico voluntarily, but state and local officials often use coercive methods or threats. 1933, President Franklin D. Roosevelt created the Immigration and Naturalization Service, or rather the INS, during the Great Depression, unifying the federal government's immigration and naturalization responsibilities into one agency, according to the USCIS. 1942. In the wake of the U.S. entering World War II, Roosevelt signed an executive order targeting Japanese Americans to be put into relocation centers or internment camps. As a result, approximately 120,000 Japanese Americans were forced to evacuate their homes and leave their jobs to live in the camps that were surrounded by barbed wire and armed guards. Conditions that are now drawing comparisons to modern day detention facilities. 1943, the Chinese Exclusion Act and other related measures were repealed with the Magnuson Act of 1943, the Library of Congress said, establishing quotas for immigrants from China and making them eligible to receive citizenship. A State Department history notes the move was in the interest of aiding the morale of a wartime ally during World War II. 1952, the Immigration and Nationality Act of 1952 amended the 1924 measure and laid the foundation of modern immigration law, according to the USCIS. It continued the national origins quota system, but ended the exclusion of immigrants from Asia and got rid of laws that prevented Asian immigrants from receiving citizenship, the Office of the Historian said. But caveats still made the law discriminatory in practice. For example, the law used race instead of nationality in its quotas of Asian countries, which only received 100 visas each year, the office said. Further, if an immigrant had at least one Asian parent, they counted toward the quota from the country of their ethnicity or against a general, also restrictive, quota for the so-called Asia Pacific Triangle. This applied regardless of where the immigrant was coming from, and even if they were a citizen of another country, according to a policy brief from the Immigration Policy Center and the Office of the Historian. It also laid out legal framework to deport people in the U.S. illegally, according to USCIS, and prioritized skilled workers and family reunification, which is still used today, the office said. 1945 to 1952. In the early years of the Cold War, the debate around immigration was intertwined with the debate about foreign policy and national security. During deliberations about the Immigration and Nationality Act of 1952, some lawmakers wanted more liberal immigration laws, fearing that a restrictive quota system would lead to tension with other countries, the Office of the Historian outlined. However, other lawmakers were concerned about communism infiltrating the U.S., the office said. 1954, Operation Wetback was an aggressive and unprecedented sweep by U.S. Border Patrol agents in the mid-1950s that plucked Mexican laborers from fields and ranches in targeted raids, bust them to detention centers along the border, and ultimately sent many of them deep into the interior of Mexico, some by airlift, others on cargo boats that typically hauled bananas. During his first campaign in 2015, Trump cited the operation as a model for how he would carry out mass deportations. 1959 to 1961. More than 200,000 people fled Cuba in the span of 3 years after Fidel Castro's Cuban Revolution. As a result, the Cuban Refugee Program, established in 1961, helped relocate hundreds of thousands of immigrants who arrived in Miami across the U.S. during the next 2 decades, the Library of Congress said. 1962, the Migration and Refugee Assistance Act of 1962 helped provide funding and resources for refugees who came to the United States, including resettling them in the U.S. and providing aid through international organizations. It also allowed nearly 20,000 refugees into the country between 1960 and 1965, extending the terms of the Fair Share Refugee Act, which Congress passed in 1960, according to USCIS. 1965. Parts of the Immigration and Nationality Act of 1965 have made their way into modern immigration policy. The bill was spearheaded by President John F. Kennedy, who wanted immigration reform, specifically to get rid of the bans based on national origin, according to his letters to lawmakers. The law was ultimately signed into law by President Lyndon B. Johnson after Kennedy's assassination. It made several changes to immigration policy, but also several miscalculations that have had lasting consequences, in which politics has since made it difficult to correct, experts said. The law abolished quotas, established a preference system prioritizing immigrant skills and family reunification, and opened the door to more non-European immigration. However, it still favored immigrants from Western and Northern Europe over Eastern and Southern Europe, and had very low levels of permissible immigration from other countries, especially from Asian and African countries, Gillette said. Notably, the law placed a cap on the number of available visas, but did not include the immediate relatives of someone who is already in the country as part of the count. During debates around the 1965 Act, some members of Congress were worried that eliminating national origins quotas would shift the origins of immigrants away from Europe, Gillette said. Their concerns were stated in rather racist terms, she said. In fact, when Johnson signed the bill into law under the Statue of Liberty, he said it wasn't a revolutionary bill, and told Americans it wouldn't reshape the structure of our daily lives, but that it corrects a cruel and enduring wrong in the conduct of the American nation. By promoting immigration through family ties, the idea was that immigration would replicate the racial and national origins of current residents of the United States, Gillette said. That's not what happened in practice. There were enough other pathways into the country, including student or temporary visas, for example, for immigrants from other parts of the world to also sponsor their own family members, leading to a very large increase in immigration from Latin America and from various Asian countries, Gillette said. There was also an effect on illegal immigration. The new cap on the immigrants from the Western Hemisphere was lower than the number of people who wanted to come to the U.S., Gillette said. That served over time to shift some immigration flows from happening within the law to causing those to happen outside of the law, especially from Mexico, she said. According to data compiled by the Migration Policy Institute, immigrants from the Americas became the largest portion of the total immigrant population from 1980 onward, a shift from a majority European-born population. So, 1980. President Jimmy Carter signed the Refugee Act of 1980 as an amendment to the 1965 law to standardize the process of letting refugees into the U.S. The law provided the first statutory basis for asylum, according to the USCIS, and increased the number of refugees allowed in each year. Moving forward, the president and Congress also had the power to set how many refugees would be admitted annually, the law said. 1986, 6 years later, President Ronald Reagan tried to address undocumented immigration with the Immigration Reform and Control Act of 1986, which set up restrictions on employers. It made it illegal for people to knowingly hire undocumented immigrants and established an employment verification system, according to the bill. It also gave more money to the Border Patrol and other federal agencies. 1990, The Immigration Act of 1990 was the first significant revision of immigration policy since the Immigration and Nationality Act, and tried to address some of the 1965 law's pitfalls by creating more avenues for skilled and educated workers. It defined three categories of immigration based on family, employment, and diversity, the MPI said. It set a cap of 700,000 total immigrant visas for fiscal years 1992 through 1994, but still didn't include the immediate family members of U.S. citizens in that count. Notably, the 1990 law also set up 5 categories of employment visas targeting skilled workers, according to the MPI, and used a lottery system to determine which H-1B petitions would proceed further. If that sounds familiar, it's because it is. Most of the rules that we're operating under in terms of illegal immigration were set in 1990, Gillette said. Additionally, the 1990 law created temporary protected status, which has been a big topic in immigration policy today, she said. TPS applies to people who would face extreme hardship if forced to return to homelands devastated by armed conflict or national disasters. Therefore, the protections are limited to people already in the United States. Republicans and Democrat administrations have designated the protections. 1996. The 1996 Illegal Immigration Reform and Immigrant Responsibility Act put in place measures that intensified the law enforcement focus of U.S. immigration laws, Gillette said. It expanded the number of immigrants with criminal convictions eligible to be deported, introduced expedited removal procedures, and put restrictions on many unauthorized immigrants from legalizing through family relationships, she said. All right, so that brings us up to 2001, 2002. But I think we kind of see a good view just from the 1990s back, how we got to the point where we are today. And a lot of it, when it comes to wanting to restrict people into coming into this country, a lot of that rhetoric sounds the same if you look back at the previous years when they tried to restrict immigration.
I agree. And and if you think about it, if you really look at it, it seems, I mean, on its face, and it's not even being camouflaged too well. It's all about discrimination. They're discriminating
Yes,
who they
it
want in the
is.
country and who they don't want to come into the country. And I mentioned
Yes, it
something a
is.
few weeks back when you're talking about South Africans getting a free pass and expedited citizenship into the United States. No, if you want to be fair across the board. Okay, you can't say, well, okay, well, they're being chastised, they're being killed, they're being whatever it is. Look, if you look at the history of South Africa, the opposite is true. They owned 90% of that property, of the properties there. Come on. And have you heard of apartheid? So we can go on and on. But anyway, I'm not going to take that because I want to get to Dr. Sims and then I want to get to Mike. And I want you guys, based on what Ann just said, I want you to take on that because we still want to get to Alligator Alcatraz and also the DC takeover. So Dr. Sims, based on what Ann had to say, what is your take on any of that?
She read a lot of history.
Yeah.
We're going to start calling her Professor Ann instead of Judge Ann.
A lot of history. But I maybe I think a little bit different, and that's my privilege, I should say, until I'm corrected and agree with the correction. My thing is this: is I was looking up some things while you were talking, Ann, and I was listening as well. I get it that we are a loving country, should I say? And yes, everybody should have a right to migrate to us, and yes, but come here right. And that's my whole ball and wax. And I think the problematic area was the great influx, okay, of illegals. And from some of the horror stories that I heard as to the reason why some of them are coming. And it wasn't just Hispanic. I'm not just going to label Hispanic, it was all cultures. But when I hear them at the gate saying that I'm coming here and America's going to be in for trouble, there were soldiers coming in from other countries. I watched very attentively and listened to people's behavior right at the gate. a place that they call freedom for themselves. And they were mocking and they were being brutish while they were coming over. And that is what I disagree with. If you're coming over here to seek asylum and freedom, I say yes and amen to it. But I also say that every country has rules. I was looking at rules in everywhere. I cannot go to Canada. In fact, Africa would blew me away. Maybe I'm too light. I don't know, but I'm looking. That was funny, y'all. Go ahead and laugh.
Yeah.
I'm laughing.
But
Wow.
I'm just saying, this is a a serious situation. And my thing is this: I looked up Africa. Do you know I have to go through a process to go to Africa,
Yep.
even though I'm here? And there is a requirement in Canada, who's
Hmm.
screaming loud.
Mhm.
In
Hmm.
Britain, the
Hmm.
same thing. In
Everywhere.
Germany, the
Hmm.
same thing. So my thing is, and I'm a rational individual, I question why is there such a hardcore problem when it comes to the United States. I get it with Angie. That I don't agree with what happened to her. I don't. And please trust me, I can separate that. But what I have the problem is with right now is they're making us the big bad guy, okay, who are don't have loving arms to receive those who are seeking asylum. And that's not the case. My thing is what I'm also listening to. Listening to the buildup to make it worse on this end and light on the other end. And what I'm looking at, okay, we have laws here, and yeah, they might be outdated, but everybody must be outdated because a lot of them are requiring the same thing. And so that's what I'm having a problem with. And if you're going to come here, there's the rules that you abide by, and there are laws. Now, when we start shifting the laws, that's what I question. When we start shifting the laws, what we used to call wrong, we're saying they're right. In other words, you can basically do what you want to do and not anything being said. Now, as far as the hypocrisy, and that's what I'm hearing, the hypocrisy as far as colors and ethnicity, I don't see that. And the reason why I don't see it is because I believe a whole lot of them are being deported back to them getting over here in ill will. Now, if you're an American citizen, that is a problem. They need to revisit their list and do right by that. Okay. And I was looking, there's a whole lot of folks last name Guerrero. I get it. But no, not to be bullied. I'm not looking for that. I'm looking for doing it right. That's on both sides, on the government side and as well as the people here. You've got people who lived here for eons who did not, they were hiding under the radar, but they were living very well. And I get their freedom, I do. But still, you did not abide by the law, period. And I dare not go in front of a judge and I says, okay, I committed a crime, but the law says, okay, and you give me a pass for it. I can't have a pass when it's concrete because I have to be held responsible for me not adhering to the law, period. It is the law of this state. And I get it. Everybody's screaming and hollering unfair. You're choosing people. You're being bullyish. I don't agree with being bully. I don't. But you have to look at both sides. Well, you're not going to stay in America and hold your flag from where you're running from. Does that make sense?
Mm.
You,
You're not going to stand in the street and say we're unjust and you hold the flag that you so said that your country is so bad. To me, that's an oxymoron. Why are you standing in my face, screaming and hollering at me? Okay, and I'm just using myself in the scenario here. And you're holding my flag, the very country that you're running from, and saying that it's so this, it won't allow us this, it won't allow us that. But then when you don't get your way, when we don't bend over, and when we don't, and I say that lightly, okay, if you don't condescend to every wish, there is a criteria for you to get some of your demands met. Okay. I have to do certain things as an American citizen to have some demands met. And I was born and raised here, just like my mama and daddy and them were. I understand about Angie. She was raised here. I get that. No, that was wrong for them to do that. But that's not everybody. You can't put everybody in that same pot. You can't, because some of them here was doing ill stuff. Okay, you have some countries, and I don't know if it was you, William, somebody said that they were dumping out their prisoners and everything else, people who were sick, and sending them over here. Let's get a free
Yes, ma'am.
hand. And the saying
No,
was,
that was Trump. I didn't say it. That was Trump that
okay, well,
said that. I didn't
somebody
say
said
that.
it, but anyway, well, and fact, and that's fine whether he said it or not. But it was almost
No, I
like
didn't say it.
that's what it looked like. I'm sorry, I didn't know it was
It
him.
kind of does matter
I just
whether
know I heard it.
or
I just
Trump
know I heard
rise
it.
half
I
the
just know I
time.
heard it. It's just that we're the melting pot, and we have been we've been the melting pot. Okay, but there comes a times when we're overwhelmed. We have people who are born and raised here who are authentically U.S. citizens who had been looked over. Okay, let's put it all on the table. It's just not a one-sided thing. We're trying to make this thing a one-sided thing. There's some problematic areas all the way around here. Okay, where we were being neglected as U.S. citizens. Period. And that's what I'm angry about as a U.S. citizen. All right. And you talked about in your dialogue there, enslavement and things like that. And maybe I'm off a little bit, but we're still being dealt a raw hand from time to time. If you want to deal with the truth on the table here, we're still dealt foul. We still have some sick people who are in law enforcement, in ISIS, Army, who are just got some ill will concerning certain ethnic groups. And that is not a criteria for all of us. So you can't put everybody in that one pot. You got to deal with everything on the table. Right now, there's an overwhelming census. Everybody's trying to come here and hide. And I get it, because if they were doing funny with me, I would leave. Me, period. Okay. But I haven't been dealt with some of the hands that many of my some of my family members, some of my friends, okay, some of my people, okay, have been dealt. Yeah, I can be angry. Yes, I can. Yes, I can protest. But my thing is, if I stand up there and tell them, well, it's better over in Canada, it's better over in Europe, I'll go. Well, they'll tell you going over there. Period. Okay. Now, the injustices, I don't agree with the injustices. Don't get me wrong. But let's just put everything on the table. Unfair is unfair across the board. It's not just what was going on now. This has been going on, happening for eons. And the laws have been established years and years and years and years ago, as per read. However, there's some things that they're enforcing, even though we said this has been established way, 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 way back. Well, I'm looking at the other countries, so is theirs. And they haven't shifted. In fact, they've defined it even more, to the point where you have to abide by these rules if you're going to stay here. Don't stand there and protest, okay, about what your dislikes are and what your disgruntles are, and you left a place that was worse. They're not going to stand for it. So guess what? You're going to be sent back or taken back or tell you to go back. And that's just my stand. I love everybody. I do, from the heart. I'm very compassionate, but I'm not for foolishness. Okay. I've seen it happen with my sons. Okay. That's why I'm angry. So some folks that hadn't met their house yet. Right. So my thing is this: injustice and brutish and being racist is all over the place. Okay. So I think that we need to, well, me, I should say, sometimes I just back up and shake my head, because um, there's a certain aura, a certain ethnic group can only go so far. I'm doing a lot of history studying, Greer, about what's been going on down to the eons of our time. And I'm very angry with it. And has it changed? No. And I think I've shared with you, William, there is only a few people who is running this nation from backwards to forwards. And we think we have control. We don't have the control. And whatever is happening today is being orchestrated, period. Period. Whether it be Donald Trump, Pelosi, Kamala Harris, the justice system, you have one sector of people who have all of the money. Just be real, okay? And maybe this is
And
not what
money
you want
gives
to
them
hear, but
power.
it is what it is, and we are dancing through hoops And they're only going to let a certain sector be successful. They're going to let some of us remain to be impoverished because they're calling the shots. And this thing he said, who shot John, this, that, and the other, if we would just face reality, but what can we do? My thing is, the problem is out there. What can we do to do some solving? Who can we talk to, bend their ear that will listen to us so that we can make changes all the way around to make this a more loving nation, to make this a more accepting nation, and not just with people influxing in, with us having to give out love because we want some love too. Okay. And I'm here in this nation and I want some love too. But my thing is, we got people who are impoverished. And I think what is the aim now is to deal with the American people who have been impoverished and enslaved and in the streets and hungry. Okay. And so my thing is just like me with me being a mother. I'm going to take care of my children first. I'm going to make sure that my children are not without. How dare I open the door and let all kinds of folks come in and I kick my children to the curb? And I've seen parents do that. So I'm giving this analogy as a broad statement. And it's happened. It's happened based on the need, based on what you can give me, this, that, and the other. No. I don't flow that way. That's just me personally. I have to see about mine. Okay. And that's my take.
Yeah. Yeah. And we don't disagree with any of that.
No,
If you're here
I'm not trying to be
legally,
bad or anything like that. I'm just,
no,
I'm not.
if you're here legally, we understand. And there is a process called asylum. And if you're
Yes.
going about it the right way, then
Yes.
I have no problem. The problem that I'm having is that, and if you are a gangster, if you're a gang member or whatever it is, and you coming through illegally, no, I'm not. We're not even saying that. But those who are trying to do the things the right way, allow the process to take place,
I
and you
agree.
don't arrest them. You don't arrest them out of churches, out of schools, because these clowns right now are torturing children. They are arresting their parents after they drop them off to school. And many of these people, like I said, they show up at the courthouse. Their gang member is not going to the courthouse. I'm sure that Greer and Ann can tell you that those gang members aren't doing that.
I
Okay, but if
agree.
you're going through the process, you're doing the right thing, then you should not be arrested. I want to go to Mike real quick because Greer, he has some final comments, and we're gonna get to that in a little bit. And Greer, you're gonna have to come back because we only scratch the surface. We're gonna scratch the surface. Mike, your take, and then we're gonna toss it over to Greer.
Oh my! So I've been taking notes from the beginning of the show. So Greer, I agree exactly with what William just said. You have to come back. We're living vicariously through your journey through life. So I appreciate it, and I appreciate the fact that you're active in community, that you're doing things about it, that you're progressing, that you're learning, and you plan on helping people through your education and hopefully your law degree and everything else that you do in humanitarian ways. So, Anne, like I said, I'm going to relabel you to Professor Ann now. I learned a great deal. Everything you covered, I had no idea about half of that. So I appreciate you doing the research and setting the tone for today. Let's see. Where's it going? Oh, Cece, you took a lot of the words right out of my mouth, what you just spoke about. So thank you for saying that. But anyway, I got to go back to the beginning of the show and try to cover some stuff that we touched on. So here comes my rant, folks. If you want to grab a glass of something, go to the bathroom and do it now. But here comes my rant. I don't think that we should enable lazy people. And we were talking about people paying their taxes and giving people free medical, free schooling, free food, WIC cards. Well, WIC actually I like WIC. Women, infants, and children to take care of their babies and such. But people living off the dole that are leeches on society, I'm not part of that. I don't want my tax dollars going towards people that are lazy, that want to just do the bare minimum to get through and get government assistance. Here in Greer, you don't know this, but I live in Southern California, and there's 2 counties side by side, San Bernardino, which I'm in, which William moved away from intelligently, and the other county is Riverside County. More than half the people in these 2 counties are on some type of government assistance. You can't tell me that the system is working when more than half the people are on government assistance. That's not right at all. So I don't want to enable people to be lazy. Living wage. We talked about living wage earlier. I was a paper boy. I was a box boy at a little mom and pop grocery store. I was a bus boy. I worked 3 different restaurants when I was in high school, bussing tables, and I was swimming and playing water polo, morning practice, and everything else. I busted my butt. Do you think for a second that people that are in these entry-level jobs, like a box boy or a bus boy or whatever, flipping burgers, I don't believe that you can label that they, I don't think you can require that they get what's called a living wage, because it's very expensive, especially here in California. You can't expect to be vice president in charge of toilet paper when you leave high school or college. Mm-hmm. You can't, and you're just not going to get that money for it. All of you here on this program today, you all started somewhere earning money as a youngster or as a young adult. This living wage thing is bogus. You should get what you give. You should reap the benefits of what you sow. You should reap what you sow. So that's it on minimum wage or living wage. There's a vicious cycle that I see with raising children and such. And Cece brought it up, where she didn't necessarily have the best family life, but she overcame that in a big way. What I saw in working in law enforcement is I saw what I refer to as the vicious cycle, where a child would see, a young boy would see dad come home angry and beat up his mom and scream at her. And that was considered the norm. So in some young men broke that cycle and made sure that they didn't do what daddy used to do. But others, there's a repetitive cycle where now these young men grow up and beat their girlfriends and wives because they think, well, that's the way it is. That's how daddy did it. So a vicious cycle needs to be broken. Parenting. I believe parenting should be taught in school, right along with reading, writing, education. There's 2 things I think they're missing the boat on in school. They should teach everybody basic first aid, if not advanced first aid, how to save a life. And I think they should teach parenting skills in at least high school and maybe further in college. The laws, rules, policies, and practices should apply equally and fairly to everyone, or they don't mean anything. Equally and fairly to everyone. I don't care what color you are, what religion you are. I don't care. The laws for me should be the laws for all of you, period. Immigration laws need to be rewritten and brought up all the rewritings. But our laws right now are broken. Our immigration laws are broken. We used to have policies and practices where if you wanted to come to this country legally through immigration, I believe the laws were, and I haven't looked it up, so forgive me if I state something that's wrong. But you had to have some type of anchoring here. You couldn't just come here and jump off the boat and be fine. You had to show that you would not be a leech on society, that you had income, that you could survive without government welfare. You had to be able to read and write English. What's wrong with that? We're an English-speaking country. If you can't read our laws or you can't read our stop signs, and we're going to give you a driver's license and you can't even read what's on the sign where you're driving, see, it should be mandatory that you can speak and read English. My mother came here. I took a little break earlier while you guys were talking, but I was listening. And I dug in through my safe. And let me see if I can get this to work. This is my mother's green card. She came here legally. She worked for 40 years for a law firm. She paid her taxes and she raised 2 good kids, one kind of squirrely sister. But William knows my brother. Oh, hey, it's a long story. I'll tell you sometime if you want. But I had to put in jail because she embezzled like $100,000 out of a family trust. So yeah, my brother's squared away. I talk to him all the time. and my sister is not. She's still in La La Land somewhere. Okay. Immigration laws need to be revisited. They need to be reasonable and doable. Reasonable and doable. Some of the stuff is not reasonable, some of it's not doable. Anchor babies. Tell me one other nation anywhere in this world that allows anchor babies, where you can just come into a country and pop out a baby, and all of a sudden that's a citizen. I don't think there's any other country. If I'm wrong, I apologize, but I don't think any other country does that. There's Australia. If you want to immigrate to Australia, you have to prove that you have income. You have to have like $10,000 in the bank. You have to prove that you have access to $10,000. You have to prove that you can speak their language. There's all kinds of policies, rules, and practices that other countries have, including Mexico, that they complain that we're wrong, but they have all these very restrictive policies and practices to go there. I told you it was going to be a rant, you guys. Asylum, I think, is abused. People go, oh yeah, I'm afraid. No, they want to come to the country of what do they call it? Milk and honey. They want to come here. This is the melting pot. This is a glorious country that we live here in the United States. I don't blame people for wanting to come here, but don't go, oh yeah, I'm afraid because MS-13 and they're going to kill me. Asylum is being abused, in my opinion. Ellis Island. My mom came through Ellis Island. It's on the back of her card. In a perfect world, we wouldn't have these issues, but we don't live in a perfect world. You talk about fair. I'll tell you what fair is. Fair is where you go to eat cotton candy, to ride rides and step monkey poop. That's what fair is. So get over it. If you're going to reap what you sow, so work harder. Again, I covered leeches. Now think about our country as your home. All four of you. Who would you let into your home through your door, where your children are at, where you live in some type of safety? Who do you want coming through your door? Do you want other countries undesirables? Do you want criminals? Are you going to let them in your door? No. Why do we have fences? Most of us have fences. Why? It's to protect the people inside the fence from the people outside the fence. So I don't see anything wrong with protecting your home and your children and your babies. Let's see. Yeah, that's my rant. Hope you enjoyed it.
Okay. Oh boy, we're going to let since we have a few minutes left to go on. We want to honor our guests, and also Greer, you have a few topics you want to touch on, and we can get back and we can unravel this again. But guys, we're going to have a part two. It won't be next week because it's a holiday coming up, and whether it's the holidays on a Friday or Monday,
Labor Day
and
weekend.
she takes the time off. So if we have a show next week, it will probably be Mike and I doing a music show on the Boomerang. We're gonna do something different, and then we'll get back to this again. So Greer, please come back probably a week after, if you will, because we really want to hear more of what you have to say. My friend, the floor is yours, Greer.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, I've never heard as a budding lawyer, that's music to my ears.
Yes, it is. Yes,
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you.
I gave my closing arguments there.
I was about to say, Mike gave his closing, so it's only fair if somebody gets to do a rebuttal or some other type of, alternate closing. I'm grateful for this time. I'm actually, William, going to stick to this subject. The only other comment I was going to make, I was just talking with William and lead up to this show about what was going on politically, because I do think that it's important to be civically engaged. And so I just wanted to mention that a federal judge, for those who don't know, has put a pause on Alligator Alcatraz. That relates to this conversation. And I'm going to actually circle back to this conversation and give a few rebuttals. But Alligator Alcatraz, it is allowed to stay open, but no further detainees or construction is allowed because there were sewage issues as well as gas laying around and other waste receptacles that violated, speaking of laws, a national environmental protection law. And so this is, for those who don't know, Alligator Alcatraz is a detention facility in Florida for folks who are undocumented. And it's just it was just very shoddy in general. It's also very susceptible to these increasing natural disasters that we're having. And so you had you had undocumented folks sleeping on top of each other, and again, gas and sewage all around this place. And so there's been an injunction. And so the facility can stay open technically, but it just has to pause its operations that allow for more people to come. And again, they are not allowed to construct any more units because it was done in such an inhumane way. So I think that's something to note. On that point, I just want to make this point when we're talking about laws. Anne gave the legal history, and that is important. But I want to note something. Slavery was legal in this country. The Holocaust was technically legal in Germany.
Agreed.
And segregation was also legal in this country. So I just want to implore people, don't let legality be your guide for morality.
Exactly.
Okay,
Exactly.
Moving forward there, I do think, and this is not necessarily rebuttal, and of course I respect my co-panelists here, so please don't take this personally. But Dr. Sims mentioned a phrase that just got me thinking a little bit. She mentioned this, doing it right. If we're going to do immigration, let's do it the right way. And I think that is the perfect point in time to tie together what Mike as well as Ann said, and that is that we need comprehensive overhaul to our immigration system. Going a step further, we had a bill in Congress that was comprehensive immigration reform.
Right.
The President of the United States, President Trump, called around to Republicans and said, this doesn't really fit my agenda right now.
Right.
To block it. There was a very conservative Republican from a rural red state, I can't think of the state right now, who was actually a co-author of that bill. And he admitted on national TV that he was a little taken aback when the president asked him to stop. And so when we talk about fairness, and to Mike's point, I mean, I grew up hearing from my parents, the fair comes once a year, at least in North Carolina. Fairness, when I think fairness, I also think accountability. And so to Dr. Sims' points, both parties, which is why I don't really align with either of the parties, have faults. But if we're going to talk about comprehensive immigration reform, the most recent iteration of that was actually hamstrung by Republicans. That's just a fact. So I want people to know that if you're in a Republican state and your, senators aren't talking about immigration or your reps aren't talking about immigration, talk to them about it and let them know that you think we do need comprehensive reform. I think all of us on this call are in agreement with that. Moving right along, to Dr. Sims' point as well, I agree that sometimes it can be frustrating or even overwhelming to figure out what to do. What can we do to solve these issues? In this country, we talk a lot about problems, whereas in other nations around the world, they are solutions oriented. But part of my concern, and that's why I'm grateful for this show and this platform so that I can encourage people to do this, is that to Dr. Sims' point, people ask that question, what can we do? Or they make a statement, I feel like I can't do anything. However, a lot of times people don't take the next step, and that's trying. Okay. And I tell people all the time, especially if you don't have any civic engagement experience, we all know how to search the internet. Excuse me. Let me not make such broad statements.
Right.
We'll make it.
You know how to search the internet. You can search for your city councilor. You can search for your school board member. You can search for your state rep. You can search for your congressperson. You can write them about education. You can write them about healthcare. You can write them about immigration. You can share your thoughts and you can ask for a meeting. So really, there are things we can do. And I don't want people to get discouraged, even though I do agree that so many decisions in this nation are made at the top by a few elites. But I never want to diminish the power that people have in this country. Every social movement in this nation, whether it was the gay rights movement, the anti-war movement, civil rights movement, the movement for desegregation, those were all, first of all, there were young people on the front lines of all of those. And secondly, those were all people-powered movements that ended up changing laws. So I really want people to know that they do have power, and we don't have to just, give ourselves away to this system that we know is unfair.
Right.
In conclusion, speaking of, I believe it was Dr. Sims, could have been Mike, who mentioned that I wish
I'm on the chopping block.
No, not at all. I'm agreeing with you and trying to offer some solutions and context. I agree with you. I think, and this has always been since I was a boy, I guess I still am a young man, but I've always been passionate about working on our homelessness issue in this country. And I've always said we should start with our own folks, so to speak, before we start giving aid out to other countries, before we start going around and being the world's policeman. Let's make sure we have our own house or home in order first.
Well
President
said.
Trump currently is, obviously he's not out there himself, but he's allowing for the bulldozing of homeless encampments in DC and not providing any alternatives. And so again, if it were Democrats in the White House doing that, I would say the same thing. Currently, Republicans are not the party of the people. Well, they're not the party of homeless people. So let's be clear about that. Now, let me be fair. Gavin Newsom passed a policy or signed off on a law in California that did not help homeless folks at all. So he's going to get it too. He gets it from me too. But when we're talking about what's going on, and a lot of this is focused on the national level and the presidency, Donald Trump is really not helping our own, right? And so you can write to your representatives, you can talk to your communities about what you can do, right? The 4 of us on this call, or 5 of us, what can we do to support the homeless in our community? Because they obviously don't care about them at the national level. So let's it's there. To your flag point, Dr. Sims, I do hear what you're saying. I've heard that argument before. Some of these folks are coming over, maybe wrongfully. And let me just level set. And again, Ann can correct me. I want to be clear. Somebody from another country who comes over to the United States of America for the first time and does not come through a checkpoint, does not get clearance to be here, does not have any type of temporary citizenship status, they are committing a crime. They are not committing a criminal crime. They're actually a civil act.
Exactly.
I want to be clear about that. They're committing a civil act. Now, if you offend, if you are sent away and come back, that can rise to the level of being a criminal felony. But people who come over here for the first time, that is a civil offense.
Yes.
So I just want people to understand that, no, I'm not encouraging people to come over here wrongfully. But if you or I or any of the 5 of us on this call were arrested or detained for a civil offense, just think about that. Just think what civil offenses are, and if you think people should be detained for that without due process. Now, to your point about people coming over here, decrying their countries, and then waving their flags, I'm with you. Let's keep the same energy for people who have Confederate flags, because that's not going to Mike.
I agree.
Going to Mike's comments now. This quote, and again, I'm just trying to ensure that I'm using the correct language. This is not any type of personal attack, but leeches on society. I want to be clear factually that most people who come over here and are undocumented, they actually are not committing crimes, number one. So let's be clear. The number one criminal in the United States are United States citizens.
Right here.
Right here. That people use to commit crimes in this country, and y'all can fact check me in real time, are guns. And the number one victim of those gun crimes in America now, and this is a recent occurrence, are children. So when we're talking about what the problem is, I agree, because I raised this immigration point tonight, but let's talk about what is actually killing our people. It's guns, it's hate, and it's our kids being wiped off the street. And illegal immigrants are not the ones doing it overwhelmingly. To the livable wage point, Mike, total respect for you, brother. I just disagree. I think everyone should be able to make a livable wage because everyone deserves to live. And so if you're the vice president of toilet paper, I think you said at McDonald's, I expect that you should be able to work that job and still provide for yourself.
There's no gradient
your
scale.
family.
You shouldn't have to work 3-4 jobs to provide for yourself. Dr. Sims already discussed part of that experience and just how traumatic that is. And so I'm not saying they should be making as much as the CEO, but some of these CEOs can take a pay cut so that the vice president of toilet paper can get to their stocking duties, because we're all pissed when we go to a fast food restroom and there's no toilet paper. So or
the bathroom isn't clean.
Isn't clean. There you go.
And then just last but not least, I think it's really important, again, to be solutions oriented. And so when it comes to our roles as citizens or as residents of this country, I think the way that we interact with people on the local level is most important. And so in this day and age where technology is taking over, in which AI is creating images of people that don't really exist, where people are talking but it's someone else's words, mean, words really do matter. Actions matter, but words matter as well. So I don't abide by the sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. I don't agree. And then I'll just close by saying this, because I want to be mindful of time. And if we have time for other topics, I'll stick around. I and Dr. Sims, you'll appreciate this, and you'll appreciate this in particular. Mike and Brother Brown, y'all be preaching on here, but I don't know if y'all are actually ministers. So that's why this morning I went to church, and the pastor,
minister of madness, is what I am.
There you go.
That's why he calls me Mad Mike with 2 D's.
I went to church.
Mad Mike and Wild Wheel.
That part.
I went to church this morning, and the pastor said, "At the end of the day, we're all a mess. We're
All
all
right.
a miracle. We're all enough. We're all
Indeed.
sinners, but we're all
Indeed.
saved by grace, and we have the opportunity
grace
to
of
make a
God,
difference." So MESS, that spells mess. It was a miracle that the sperm met the egg, and you were born. You're more
Amen.
than enough, because
Amen.
you live in this country. The 5 of us on this call are having this conversation. That's the first step. We matter. We have rights. We deserve to be
Indeed.
protected
Right.
and feel seen and heard and appreciated. We're all sinners. We all fall short. Even if you don't ascribe to
Amen.
religion, you know you mess up. Everybody
You know it.
listening and watching, but we're all
Amen.
saved by grace. We all have another chance. And so I'm for ensuring that people get second chances.
Yes.
I'm
Amen.
for fairness, but I'm also for accountability. And I'm
Amen.
for letting facts speak for themselves in context. So I'll
Indeed.
close there.
All
Indeed.
right. Look at the
Indeed.
lawyer. I love it. I love it.
And just for Mike's because I'm still learning StreamYard, even though I've been using it for years now. To Mike's point, I put a link in the chat. I can't tell if the public can
I
see it or
saw
not,
it.
but
I
there are
see it.
other
I got it.
countries.
I got
Yes,
it. I
wonderful.
clicked on it, and I'm going to watch it.
Wonderful.
And thank you for fact checking me, because I was unaware of that. So I thought we were the only country that did anchor babies or allowed citizenship like that. So again, you're not going to offend me at all. Thank you for your wisdom.
Man, you know, hey guys, I have to say this. Greer, thank you. We really appreciate you being on. I think I can
Yes.
speak for the rest of the panel. Really appreciate you being on this network. And man, you're young, you're bright, and your future is bright, brother. And like I said, I can
Yes.
see Greer, president, 2032.
Hey
I
now.
mean,
Yes. Yes.
We need-
And I will
Yes.
do my best to not be one of those snobbish elites that Dr. Sims
I'll work
mentioned.
on
I'm going to remember
campaign. Come
y'all.
on.
I'm going to remember y'all.
Right. Have AJ as
Hey,
his
brother.
running mate.
There you
He
go.
wants politics in his life.
And have
too.
my
That's
daughter
good.
Secretary of State, because she don't
Hey,
play.
why
Okay,
not?
I'm just-
Well,
Why-
look, there's my whole
Yeah, we-
campaign. I'm going to just hang everything up.
okay.
William, can I say
you know, I
one
tell
little
you.
thing? Can I say
Yeah,
one little
please,
thing?
please.
I understand that there's a stigma with people who are on government assistance, but when you live in a state like California where gas is as expensive as it is, I've said many times before over the years, I don't know how y'all buy gas. I don't know how y'all have apartments or houses. I don't know how you have any trees because of the wildfires that are always there.
Right.
But when you live in a state that is so expensive that you can't even afford your rent on a minimum wage salary, yeah, it sounds like you're going to be a person who needs help to take care of yourself and your family. So the fact that you've got 2 counties of people who need that government assistance should be a warning flag that this is wrong. Why is it that they cannot make enough money in order to support themselves and their families, and they go to work every day, especially if they've got 2 or 3 jobs? So that's all I want to say. I'm not blaming the people.
And
I
can I-
blame the system.
Can I jump right in? Yes, and I'm behind you, Ann. But you know
Yeah,
what?
go on.
There's this will be a whole big series, okay, on this, okay, because I don't respect laziness either, okay,
Mhm.
and taking advantage of the system either, okay,
Mhm.
because we have people who are discouraging their children from being profitable
Mhm.
for fear that their aid is going to be taken away. You don't ever discourage a young man who wants to work and who wants to, and this is kind of foolishness that's going on. I have on hands related, what should I say, knowledge of what's going on in our society. And so when you know the ins and the outs, no, I don't agree with taking it. I couldn't even get a break. I got 3 children working 3 jobs, but you have some that is getting over and above who's doing absolutely nothing. okay, and who don't want to be successful. And so that's where I have a problem. And that's per their verbiage. And it's a genealogy thing from grandma to mama to sister to uncle. That's taking advantage of my tax dollars. And I'm gonna talk about my tax dollars. And so that is a different subject. But I want to change it on a happier note. I got 2 more great grandbabies, girls coming in this world that's going to be making number 18 great grandchildren.
Congratulations.
And I've got
Praise the
14
Lord.
grandchildren. And I had my
Awesome.
granddaughter, my daughter-in-law, who graduated top of the class for her master's. My
Praise
youngest
the Lord.
son's wife,
Awesome.
who just got her master's in psychology. She's already in the doctorate program. I have
Praise God.
grandbabies who are going on to college, and some more is getting inducted and wanting to
That's
go to the
amazing.
military. My grandbaby,
Yes.
who's in the military, is the top notch. She's getting her master's and going on pursuing. So I'm bragging now. And so
Praise
those are the
God.
good points.
And you should.
When we
Praise
Not
the
every
Lord.
right
And
to
you should
brag.
brag.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
and when we
Praise
encourage,
the
and all
Lord.
my children are in school, they don't wear their pants down, and this is why
Amen.
I'm excited, because when you have fun
Yes.
hands
Yes.
and you teach your children and they pass that down, it's a generational thing. So we have to change the mindset of the generation. That's how we're going to help each other. That's a solution right there. Is when you start reteaching people and
Right.
changing their
Right.
mindset and giving the love that they so richly deserve and need and searching for. We can change a whole heck of a lot by changing the hatred and the bitterness and things like that, and start seeing people different, that everybody's God's children and we belong to him, as Greer says. But we have to teach that too. It can't be one-sided.
Absolutely.
So we have to stop bickering
Absolutely.
among each other and just say what it is. Boom. I'm done.
Yeah, and
All
Dr.
right.
Sims, I want to say this. Look, brag about what your children and grandchildren are doing.
Yes.
Go on and brag.
Yes.
Nothing wrong with
Yes.
that.
And my son
You know, I'm
opened
so
up his
proud.
church in Texas, and
Praise
it's doing
God.
wonderful.
Okay.
Praise God.
Okay.
Praise
I'm
God.
proud of you. I'm proud of what you've done, how you've nurtured and taught your
God be the
children and
glory.
grandchildren.
I tell
And
you.
I'm so proud of Ann and their sons
Yes.
and the
God.
teenagers. And this is absolutely incredible. Hey guys, I thoroughly enjoyed this program. I hope you guys did too.
Yes.
It was
Yes.
outstanding having Mike. Go on, sir.
Can I just a real quick comment? I want to thank Jackie and Alexander, who's a buddy of mine out here, for their comments today. Thanks for joining us. And I will say that you reap what you sow. So I'm going to do what Cece says. I'm going to go biblical on you. You reap what you sow. When I met William, about 12 years or so ago, I was in my late 50s and I was working 2 jobs. Is that right, William?
He was full time.
I was in my late 50s because I knew I was going to reap what I sowed. And the reason that I'm financially extremely well off is because I worked my butt off from the time I was delivering papers or mowing old Mrs. Kesting's lawn or whatever it was. So again, you reap what you sow.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'm going to say this real quick. How I met Mike. Mike was working at he was a butcher at this grocery store. I used to go by and I used to get fish on Sundays, right? Because I was hungry after singing and stuff like that. And I was talking
3 pounds of tilapia.
Oh, wow.
I remember his order: 3 pounds of fried tilapia.
Wow.
And it was all. And guess what? And guess what? It was all for me. And I was talking real quick. We've got only a few minutes. And I was talking to this other couple, really nice couple in front of me. And Mike was listening. And when I came to the counter, Mike said, "You're a financial advisor?" I said, "Yeah." I had no idea. He listened to everything that I said. And we became friends. And a year later, he became my client. And we've been buddies ever since. Some of you may not know on the Boomerang, but we were really good friends. And I said, "Hey,
yes, we are. We may not always agree, but we're good friends." And the thing that really caught my ear with William was when he was talking to this young couple. They had to be maybe in their early 20s, mid 20s at the most. Just if you looked at a cover on a magazine, they could fit on the cover of the magazine. They were just a cute couple. And the gentleman, I believe, asked him, he says, "Well, we don't have a lot of money to invest." He goes, "You don't have to. You can start with a couple of $100 or $1,000 or something like that. I'll help you out. I'll get you there." It wasn't like, well, if you don't have $10,000 or $100,000 to invest, I can't help you. No, he was willing to help them with very little money investment. And I believe at the church that he would attend out here, I believe that he gave financial advice classes at the church for free. Am I correct, William?
I did. That's correct. Exactly. I used to put on workshops.
That's what caught my eye about William.
Yep.
Absolutely.
We talked about that before.
Guys, yep. Hey, look here. Like I said, Ange, she takes off every holiday. So next week,
yes, William. That's what they're for.
Hey, that's what it's for. Come on.
Yeah, you take off a whole month for your birthday, William. You take a whole month for your birthday.
Right.
Who did? Me?
Women, hold it. Women, hold it.
I can be sharing my business.
Jackie, ongoing shenanigans with Mad Mike and Wild Bill.
Yeah, and Mike and Jackie, William always starts it. Ooh.
I just finished it.
Hey guys, no. And so check us out next week. We're gonna have a music show next week. We're just gonna have a really good time. It's the holiday, right? Hey, turn down the TV, turn up the radio, and we're gonna have a really great time. Hey guys, it's been a great show. Thank you so much. And don't come back in a few minutes. Kick back and grab a glass and enjoy Sunday Night Gold with WB and the Jazzy Diva. All right.
Have a blessed week, everybody. I love you.
Bye.
Bye, guys. Alexander, thanks for tuning in, buddy. I'll call you in a few minutes.